Hey, Hartford County. I'm Emily Adolph of The Soul Lift. You may remember me as a guest on Rich's podcast. Well, I'm back with something special.
And I'm Ona Crow. We're introducing Nourish and Connect, a gathering space designed to bring people together that feels authentic, supportive, and uplifting.
This is about real relationships, shared wisdom, and growth.
Our gatherings nourish with mindful experiences and reflective activities to leave you inspired.
And they're designed to connect with intentional conversations and welcoming community where you truly belong.
They're the second Wednesday of every month. Join us on April 9th at Doss Beer Hall in Bel Air from 5:30 to 7 p.m. to celebrate spring.
And mark your calendars for May 14th and June 11th. We have amazing experiences planned for summer.
Come as you are and let's grow together.
Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Hartford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of the work, and I don't have the answer. It's okay. No, the truth is...
Today on Conversations with Rich Bennett, we have an incredible guest joining us, Karen Dittman. Karen is an author, speaker, and wellness advocate who has spent more than 25 years navigating the 5 big A's. You heard me right, the 5 big A's. And I know what you're saying. Rich, what in the world are the 5 big A's? Adoption, anxiety, ADHD, autism, and addiction. While raising her children and even stepping into the role of parenting a grandchild, she and her husband, Michael, co-authored Thriving in Grace, Unleashing Wellness from a Biblical Perspective. Wow, running lips here. A book that explores how we can move beyond simply surviving life's challenges to truly thrive and through faith, grace, and wellness. Karen's journey has been one of resilience, transformation, and learning how to find peace in all the chaos around us. Today, she's here to share her insights, her experiences, and how we can all step into a life of greater wellness no matter what we're facing. And before I get to Karen, those of you listening, do me a favor, because it's one of the first things I'm going to ask her before we get into the book. Go to KarenDittman.com. That's DITTMAN, KarenDittman.com. So when I bring up the one question, you'll know what I'm talking about. So how you doing, Karen?
Good. And let me just real quick, it's actually KarenADittman.com.
Oh, I did miss the A, didn't I?
Yeah. Because if you go to KarenDittman.com, you'll find an artist in Texas who has beautiful work, but it's not me.
Oh, so you don't want that. You want KarenADittman.com. Like I said. Wow. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
See, this is what I get for not wearing my glasses. All right. So before we get into the book and the big question I want to ask you about your website, tell us a little bit about Karen, which I know is also in the book.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, there's a lot of stories about me and my life in the book and other people who have shared their stories with me. But yeah, I am a mom in my 50s and a grandmother. I actually grew up in Maryland, not far from where you are, Rich. Mm-hmm. I have 3 kids who are actually my kids. When people ask me how many kids do you have, I often say, well, it depends how you count.
Wait a minute. Do you consider Michael as one of the kids too?
No. He is very, very adult and very self-sufficient. So he is not considered one of the kids. But no, I have 2 kids who are in their mid-20s now. We adopted them as babies. I have, surprise, surprise, I got pregnant in my mid-40s and now I have a 10-year-old.
I saw that on your website. I'm like, No way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow,
we're that
that's amazing.
family. That family. Adopted kids. We were sure we were done. I mean, my kids were 13 and 15, and guess what? Mom's having a baby now. Yeah.
Before you go further, I have to ask, with both you and those of you listen, Michael is her husband. What was, when you both found out, I mean, what was your first reaction?
Well, the reality is he suspected before I did.
Oh,
We
wow.
had been on vacation in the summer. I was like, I'm just not feeling great. I'm run down. Like, you guys made me eat ice cream every day. So I just not feeling great. And so then one day he looked at me, he's like, do you think maybe you should take a pregnancy test? And I said, no. He said, are you sure? I was like, okay, fine. Let's just set your mind at ease. You can run over to the store. It was just down the road, grab a pregnancy test. I'll take it and then we'll move on with life. And so I see that thing come up positive. I was like, oh my God.
Did you tell him to go get another one and take it again?
Well, I think it might have even been a 2-pack.
Okay.
I was in so much shock, but it was also just so much joy and delight.
Right.
Our younger child at the time, our daughter, was like, she had always wanted us to adopt more kids. She was hoping and praying that we would add to our family. And when we told her, no, God's not leading us to adopt again, we've really seriously thought about this, and God has said no. And
Right.
so we told her, this is the answer to your prayers, girl. So, yeah.
God surprised us too.
Yes.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, and you're hearing more of it today that, women in their 40s are getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Because before it was unheard of. But were you scared at all?
There are very reasonable and normal fears that can come up with a pregnancy in your mid 40s. And especially having never been pregnant before, I didn't know what to expect. And there was one day, my husband was looking at some stuff online and said, do you want to see what I'm hearing about, pregnancy over 45? I was like, no, I don't. And he said, oh, wait, I have to tell you this one thing. It's okay. What? He said, all of the experts are saying it is virtually impossible for a woman over 45 to be pregnant with her own eggs. When you hear about it with celebrities, it's always with donor eggs or something like that. I'm like, well, God has done something different here. It is a miracle, an absolute miracle. If the experts say it's impossible, the experts said it was impossible for us to get pregnant in the first place. So
that's amazing.
Such a God thing.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue your story.
So anyway, we've got the 3 kids. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter that we're raising. I have another 3-year-old granddaughter who calls me mom. For a while, we had a teenage foster daughter. So, technically I have 3 kids and 2 grandkids, but there have been as many as 6 people who've called me mom. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I've never had that habit. I just had a bunch of kids call me uncle, but never mom. I mean, well, of course not
Well,
mom,
I
but
hope
never
not
dad.
Yeah.
Okay. So something with your website.
Yeah.
I have to ask you this. The hamster wheel. How fast is your hamster wheel spinning? Explain that.
Yes. Well, as mom, grandma, building a business, writing, building a speaking career, all of this, there's just so much going on in my life. And I know that there are a lot of, especially moms, who are like trying to balance everything. And like, you feel like I got on this hamster wheel and it's spinning and spinning and spinning, and I want to get off, but it won't stop. And how do I find relief when I am stuck on this hamster wheel? A lot of us, and we always think, oh, I just need to get a break. I need to get off. So that I can have some self-care. But what I am learning, what God has shown me, is He's there with me on the hamster wheel. So I've got that quiz, how fast is your hamster wheel spinning, that's on my website. And it's just designed to help you identify what's going on. Do I already have some habits that are helping me with finding some relief while it's still spinning? Or do I need to try to to do something different? But for me, I found God met me on the hamster wheel instead of telling me we're going to stop it and you can get off.
Okay. So I'm going to, everybody make sure you take that. I'm going to try it.
Thank you.
And why not?
Yeah.
But your website, I mean, is great because you have, devotionals on there, meditation. What else am I seeing there? Did I see a blog?
I don't have a blog.
Okay.
No.
The interviews and teaching links.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is great, but you don't do your own podcast though, do you?
Not yet. It's kind of not yet. I see your eyes lighting up.
Yes. So tell us more here. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Not yet?
So, right now I've got some other things in the works. Right now I am working on because February is Heart Health Month. I'm looking at how do we care for our hearts in like the spiritual, emotional sense, and planning a 3-day Thriving on the Hamster Wheel challenge that's focusing on ways to really care for our hearts.
Really?
Yeah. And then Lent's coming up, Lent leading to Easter. So March, April, I'm going to be putting out some content related to Lent, calling it Letting Go for Lent. And just, what are the things, we always think of Lent, especially if you've grown up like in the Catholic or maybe even Orthodox tradition, you think of, I'm going to sacrifice something, I'm going to give up something for Lent. But what if instead of thinking about taking away, my chocolate or my indulgence, what if I think about letting go something that is in the way of me really connecting with God in my life? Ooh. What if I give up, what if for Lent I let go of what I call panic prayers? Like things are going crazy. I'm like, help. What if for Lent I give up my anxiety?
Oh, I like that.
So things like, what if for Lent I actually take a look at what is under my fears, and instead of just letting my brain spin with the what ifs, I surrender to God with the even ifs.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So how can people find out about this challenge?
Yeah. So through the quiz on my website, there's a way to sign up for that Thriving on the Hamster Wheel challenge.
Okay.
And then also, you'll get on my email list. So I'll be able to send you information about Lent. And I'm planning to keep updating the website with some of this content too, so that people will be able to find links to join all of these.
Okay. So crazy. Well, it's not a crazy question. With your email list. Yeah, we will get into the book here.
Yeah, that's okay.
But with your email list, because I think it's important. I think a lot of people miss the boat when they'll ask for subscribers to an email list, but they never send out an email or whatever. Any plans on also, unless you're already doing it, like morning prayers or anything?
Oh, that's a good idea. What I try to do is just a weekly Monday message, I call it.
Which is good too.
Yeah. Just sending out just sort of some thoughts, to be aware of, things that God has brought to my mind that I will bring out, and just, share with people what's going on and what I'm thinking about, and hopefully inspire them to grow closer to God themselves. And of course, when I am selling something, having a business, I will do occasionally, there will be like the Black Friday special, or if I've got a sale on something, or if there's something coming up, I will put out, some opportunities. But I don't look at my email list as people that I'm trying to sell stuff to.
Right.
I look at my email list as people that I'm trying to serve and just inspire them in their lives.
Which is good. Yeah. So everything that you just mentioned there, is that when you start your podcast, is that what the focus is going to be as well?
Yeah. So the podcast plan, and this will lead us back into talking more about the book, I think. So the plan for the podcast is actually to start walking through some of the things that are in the book, to help people understand the grace cycle that's in the book, to help people understand what it looks like to find, to move, not necessarily to find, but to move closer to wellness in the 7 areas of our lives that we wrote about in the book. So I've got this plan laid out, and I will probably mostly record my own things for the podcast, and then a few times bring in an expert or somebody who can speak to some of these different areas too.
And there ain't no thinking, I know when you start it, that'll take off very well. Very well. And if you guys have any questions, need any help with anything, feel free to reach out to me. I always love helping other podcasters.
Great. Thank you, Rich.
I do not charge for that. I consider myself like a mentor. I feel if I see a podcaster succeed and I help them, that's my reward to see them succeed. Okay. So the book, because this is your second book.
It is the second book. Yeah. The first book was our COVID project.
Oh, that was written during COVID.
It was written during COVID. Yes.
And that was The Fruit of Gratitude, right?
The Fruit of Gratitude. Yeah. So, my husband, part of our story that I share a lot is that right at the beginning of the whole pandemic and lockdowns, he got sick with COVID. And he got sick in this really exciting window between when you could get a test and when you could get a test only if you were dying in the hospital. So, but we had
Karen, I have to admit, I've never heard those two words put together, COVID and exciting window.
Yeah, I use it ironically, right? But he had 2 doctors who confirmed you've got all of the symptoms. This is clearly COVID. But he got sick, and the way his body responded, he went through 6 weeks of feeling horrible for several days and then starting to feel better, and maybe I'm better. And then he would go out for a walk, and the next day he's down again. Wow. And then he'd be sick for a few days and then start to feel better. And maybe I'm over this. Great. And then boom, it hits. So for 6 weeks, he was at home, working from home. And one day he said, as long as I've got this extra time while I'm at home, is there anything I can do to help you with your business? And I said, well, I really would love to write a gratitude journal. But I don't want to be just a typical journal that's list all the things you're thankful for. I want to know what the Bible teaches about gratitude. And that just lit him up, because he's the kind of guy who, if you ask him, what does the Bible say about fill in the blank? He's going to dig up everything on that subject and then organize it and synthesize it. So he did all of this study and dug out these verses. And then we together put it together into the journal, and we kind of organized. So it's a very simple journal. Each day for 6 weeks, you've got a scripture passage and a time to just pause and meditate, and then a question that may or may not speak to you, but you can write whatever you want in the journal because it's your journal, right? So so there's 6 weeks of scriptures, and it doesn't start with, the Bible says be thankful, so you should be thankful. It starts with experience God's love, experience his goodness in your life. And then very naturally and organically, the gratitude grows from our connection with God.
So those of you listening, that means you have to purchase both books. Not just Thriving in Grace, but the other one as well, which I know you're going to love that as well. So, I mean, it's written during COVID. Wow. And I love the title, The Fruit of Gratitude. Mm-hmm. So how'd you guys come up with that title?
I think we came up with it as we were doing the studying, and we began to realize that gratitude is a natural fruit of our relationship with God.
And what about Thriving in Grace?
Yeah. How do we come up with the title, or just talk about the book? How'd you
come up with the title, first of all?
And originally that one was titled Survive and Thrive, because we were in a place where we were feeling like we were in survival mode, but we were trying to also thrive and trying to experience, all of the things that we had learned as we worked on. And we have gone through these books ourselves. Right. We haven't just written them. We have lived them. In fact, I've got The Fruit of Gratitude sitting by my bedside table, and I'm working through it again, even now. So it's something that is just completely, it's changed our lives. So as we were going through the surviving, but, through a really hard season in our lives, I had somebody say to me, "You're not just surviving though, you're also thriving in this." And I was like, yeah, but I kind of felt like, that's kind of a very, I don't know, I want to say almost a trite kind of phrase. So I started just kind of getting some other ideas and brainstorming. And, so came up with several titles and people really liked that one. So that's what we went with.
Okay, so the survival that you were going through, is that when you started writing the book?
Yeah, we started writing that book in November of 2020.
Oh, wow.
And so 2020 for us wasn't just pandemic, COVID, sickness, lockdowns. It was a lot of the other, I've talked about, you already mentioned the 5 A's, the anxiety that was coming up in our daughter who was now, oh gosh. So she was 19 at the time.
School.
Yeah. Yep.
School. It's still in school and they took school away from her.
So she was out of school, but
oh, okay.
My kindergartner at the time came home for spring break and never went back. And then when she did go back in the fall, because she was going to a Christian school, and they were like, "We're going to reopen, but to keep everybody safe, we'll have a no symptoms policy. So you get a runny nose, you can't go to school.
Oh, jeez.
You get a cold and you get over it, but you still have that lingering cough, you can't go to school." And all of these things. And then she was also battling just enough anxiety through her, with school and some social things.
Yeah.
That then we would be driving up to school and she says, "My stomach hurts." And it's an anxiety response. She's not sick. She walks into that school and tells her teacher, "My stomach hurts." They're telling me to come back and pick her up.
Yeah.
So, so it's just, so that fall was so hard for her with school because she missed easily half of the semester. So I pulled her out after December and started homeschooling her. But yeah, so we had her and the school struggles. We had my older daughter was really dealing with anxiety, and she was also in an abusive relationship at the time.
At 19?
At 19, yes.
Oh, jeez.
Yes. And her boyfriend was like, she and her boyfriend were both like paying way too much attention to all of the wrong news. And so they were like afraid, a helicopter flies over and they're like, are we having war? What's going on?
Yeah.
Or is the military coming to lock us down? And it was 2020. I mean, none of this had ever happened in any of our lives. We had nothing to prepare us. So we had no way to know what could happen. So anyway, so her anxiety, and then with the relationship, her boyfriend started using drugs and drew her into that addiction.
Oh, God.
So as we're in this, we had started writing Thriving in Grace, and things were hard enough, and they just kind of kept spiraling downward until the point where one day the following summer, and we didn't know that they were using drugs together. They were really, really good at hiding what was going on.
A lot of them are.
Yeah, they are. They are. And very, an addict is going to be extremely manipulative to get what they want. And that's all they know to do because the addiction is driving them.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So that summer, there was a day that she said to us, it was right after her daughter turned 3. And she said, "Hey, can you watch my daughter overnight? I'm just going to go out with some girlfriends. We're going to spend the night at the hotel." We're like, "Okay, sure. That's fine." And then she didn't come back.
What?
And yeah, she just, days later, she's texting, and she starts texting every few days to maybe every week or so, like, yeah, I'm coming back. But we didn't know. When we discovered, we had discovered that her boyfriend was using drugs at our house, and we told him, "You are not welcome to come back."
Oh.
And we didn't know that she was also using drugs. So she followed him and she went with him. And they were, living on the streets in, outside of Denver.
But you still had the baby, right?
But we had her daughter, and she always, through this whole process, she was willing to let us file for guardianship. She knew it was in her daughter's best interest to stay with us. She did not try to take her daughter with us, which is such a blessing because, terrible things could have happened to that sweet little girl. So she eventually did come back a couple months later and came clean and told us the whole thing that happened, asked us to help her to get into rehab. And at that point, there's this whole rehab relapse cycle that happens. Yeah. So unfortunately, she wasn't able to get and stay clean at that point. She since has, totally by the grace of God. But so we're writing the book, and I'm dealing with, now I've got another child in my home that I have to take care of. And I'm homeschooling a first grader now. And I think she was even going into second grade at that point. So homeschooling, raising my granddaughter, all of the fears and anxieties over what is going on with my daughter, because I'm like,
God was really testing you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, she walks away and says she's spending the night at a hotel, and then she doesn't come back. I'm like, she's been trafficked. Oh my gosh, she's been trafficked. And, and so what can I do to help her? How can I get her out? How can I rescue her? And so all of this stuff. So it was just so crazy that season.
So when you were going through all this, did you lose faith at all?
I didn't.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because most people would have.
Yeah. I was really, really blessed to be surrounded by some other women who had walked through addiction with other family members, not necessarily a child, but other family members. So there were other people in my life who got it and reached out to me and supported me and said, we're good. Whatever you need, if you need us to pray, if you need us, just to talk, whatever, just give us a call or give us a text. I actually formed like a little text group with my friends. And so that was really helpful through it all. And I think at that point, I knew through so many things I'd been through in my life anyway, that God, when we go through these hard things, it doesn't mean that God's walked away from me.
Right.
It means that God is in it with me. I mean, Jesus suffered on the cross. He knows. Our God is a God of redemption. There were times when I would say I could not for myself hold on to hope for my daughter's recovery. And I leaned on other people to be praying for her and to hold on to that hope, because if I kept holding on to it, I couldn't let myself be disappointed yet one more time. So I had to let go of that hope, but my faith was strong.
All right, which is good. The faith was strong, but as far as how was everything between you and Michael? Because that's a lot on a couple.
It is. And that's one of those other things when you have, especially a child in addiction. Yeah. If you ask them, of course, they don't want to destroy their parents' marriage, but the way they're behaving to get what they want and what they feel they need, they will come in the middle and try to. So we really were very aware of that potential. We stood strong, and it got to the point where I had to say, I had to be aware, and we were working with a therapist for a while too, who supports families who are going through addiction or who have a loved one who's addicted. And so I had to say, I am aware that everything I keep doing to try to help is not helping, it's enabling. And so I took everything and I just handed it to him. I said, you be the one to communicate with her. You be the one to, if she's calling somebody because she wants a ride somewhere, she talks to you, not me. In all of this, I just had to just say, talk to dad, to dad. And so that was really good because it gave him the place to step up not that he hadn't stepped up before. I don't want to say it that way, but it gave him the place to step in front of me and make sure that we weren't just continuing to enable her addiction, but that we were pushing her into the place where she needed to be so that she could, they say that an addict has to hit rock bottom. And it's awfully hard as a mom to watch your child when you think you know what rock bottom is, but it's actually lower than that.
Yeah.
And so, so she's, it gave me the freedom too, to turn and focus on the two young girls in my home and not have my attention drawn away from them anymore. So it was actually, our marriage stayed strong through all of that. Yeah.
And the thing is, and a lot of times when somebody's enabling an addict, they don't realize they are an enabler, that they are doing that.
Right.
It's sometimes it may be somebody else stepping in and saying, you realize what you're doing. And then then your mind opens up and say, "Ooh, wow, you're right."
Mm-hmm.
And it's addiction. Addiction is it's well, of course, it's very dangerous, but everybody is different. Because you hear about a lot of people who do the tough love. Yeah. That doesn't work all the time.
Right.
You hear about, of course, enabling and all that, and rehab. Yeah, rehab is not always going to work the first time.
Right. For most people, it doesn't.
For most people, it doesn't.
Right.
And knock on wood, some people it does. Mm-hmm. And you hear the term cold turkey too. Cold turkey is, nowadays, I don't believe in it. It because of all the different drugs out there, especially fentanyl. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to go cold turkey. Okay. Yeah. So during all this, since 2020, you guys are working on the book, right?
Yeah. 2020, 2021. Mostly he did the background Bible study and he formulated a lot of the principles that are in the book. And then I was the one putting the words on the paper. Or, not on paper literally, but on the screen anyway.
Some people still use paper, Karen.
Yes, I know. I even only put one space after my period now. And, that just feels so non-Gen X.
I actually talked to an author the other day. He still writes on paper to this day. And then converts it over to computer. It's like, wow. Yeah. You're listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. We'll be right back. Hey, are you looking for a place where voices from all over the world come together? Well, look no further than the Chesapeake Podcast Network. We've got podcasts in every genre, from comedy to health, interviews to news. There's something for everyone. And for all you podcasters out there, it's free to join. Plus, we're more than just a network. We host monthly virtual networking meetings where you can connect, collaborate, and grow with fellow creators. So sign up today at ChesapeakePodcastNetwork.com and get ready to join a global community. Okay, so in the book, it's not, well, I guess in a way it's a guidebook, but you're also telling the stories in there, right? About what was going on for you guys.
Right.
And you mentioned all these levels. Explain these levels.
Tell me what you're asking about. The
okay, so all right, let's start from the beginning. The biblical approach. You got, the bearer, the curiosity. Man, I am not speaking right today. Connection and grace. Right. All right. So go over those four first, and then we'll go into the 7 elements of wellness.
Okay. Yeah. So bara is a Hebrew word. It's actually the word used in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It is used throughout the Old Testament in a sense of emptying something so that it can be filled with something. The Israelites, when they didn't have enough space, they were told, bara, clear land to create space so you can build homes. So the concept that we teach in there is emptying ourselves of things that are holding us back, things that are in the way, so that we're making space for God to fill us with what is good. So it's kind of a foundational principle.
Right.
Curiosity and connection are two really important tools that we need to use to it's just to enter into change, transformation in our lives. If we're not curious, if we're not aware of what's going on inside, then we can't know what needs to change. We can't know how we respond to things that we try. We've got to be continually engaging our curiosity as we're trying to make changes in life. Connection is the importance of being connected to myself, to God, and to others for support. And then,
so which comes first with connection?
I don't know that one necessarily comes first. They're all important.
Okay.
Yeah. But, and some of us, I think, might struggle with different ones. Like some of us might struggle with the internal connection with myself and understanding what's going on and being aware, but be surrounded by other people. Some of us might be very intuitive, very in tune with ourselves, very connected with God, and be pushing others away, or just not have others in our lives that are supporting us. So I think it's a matter of, and curiosity and connection kind of go hand in hand. So we've got to be curious about that too.
I love that. And my favorite, which is my daughter's name, Grace.
Grace. Yeah. Yes. Grace is actually my two granddaughters' middle names.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
So I got to tell my daughter that I was talking to somebody that had two other Graces. That's become a common name lately.
It has.
Too.
It has. Yeah. It was also
Beautiful name,
my grandmother's middle name. And,
really?
And so my, my nieces and nephews, not my nephews, but several of my nieces have got the middle name Grace. And so it's kind of,
all right. So
anyway,
anybody in the family named Grace think that you wrote the book about them?
Nobody has said that.
Grace.
Yeah. No. Haven't heard that one yet.
Have.
Yeah.
So. Mom, thanks for writing this about me. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the idea of grace is, and this one, I actually did the study. Like I looked at the word grace throughout the Bible. And then I went back to Michael's like, am I getting this wrong? Or am I onto something? Because what I saw, and when you look at the entire Bible, not just Paul's letters, which is where we usually get this definition, that grace is God's gift of salvation to those of us who don't deserve it. I've understood that grace is so much more. And I outline it all in the book, so I won't go into all of the details, but that grace is how God is working in the world, overcoming impossible obstacles, overcoming the boundaries so that he can accomplish his good purposes. So of course that includes salvation. Right. But when we limit this understanding of grace to only salvation and only this gift of salvation, we're doing God and ourselves a disservice, because God's grace is so much more. It is, by God's grace, I got pregnant at 45, by God's grace, or 46 even. By God's grace, all of the things that are humanly impossible are the things that he does in the world. Yeah. So it's just a beautiful understanding that just opens up my understanding of God and how he's at work in the world and in my life. So, the things that are impossible for me to change, when I surrender, when I invite him and his grace in, that's when I can let go. I mean, it is totally by God's grace that my daughter is off of drugs and healthy and sober and recovered.
With that, today, especially with a lot of people, why do you suppose they are hesitant to invite God in?
Well, I think that a lot of people are hesitant to invite God in because here's where I think there's a big problem in Christianity. We have been saying for decades, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And then people say, okay, I'll buy into that. And then we treat it like a religion. We say, okay, here's what you do now. Jesus saved you. So now you turn around and you serve him and you give him your life and you do everything you can to show God how grateful you are for that salvation.
Wow.
If I got married to my husband and I turned around and I said, oh, he was so kind to marry me and provide for me and give me a home, so I am going to spend my life cleaning his house and serving him meals and taking care of all of the things and just serving him. That's not a relationship.
No.
We are not engaging in relationship. That is transactional.
Mm-hmm.
But the way we have approached Christianity is transactional. It's God did this for me, so I need to spend my life working to pay him back, which I can never do anyway. So I've just got to keep giving back and giving back and giving back.
Right.
God wants us to love him, and he wants us to experience his love. He doesn't want us to just spin our wheels serving. I mean, there's nothing wrong with serving. Some of us are really wired that way. But when it's that transactional attitude, who wants in on that? I want a real relationship.
I love the way you explained that too. I never even thought about it that way, especially the relationship and and religion part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're 100% right. It's wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So on to the 7 elements of wellness.
Right. Right.
Those of you listening, I hope you're taking all this in. And no, Karen's not going to give everything away because otherwise you won't buy the book. We want you to buy the book. So,
well, if you buy the book, even if I gave it all away in, the time that we have left, you wouldn't be able to highlight anything I'm saying, right? So,
well,
yeah.
Actually, with this, I usually wait till the end, but I think this is important because you guys are self-published, right?
Yes, we are on Amazon.
Any plans on, I know it's on Kindle, any plans on doing an Audible version?
That is in the works. It has already been recorded and it's in the editing process. So yes, I spent a couple of weeks in December recording the Audible book. Yeah.
Is it just you or you and Michael recording?
Just me. Yeah. I just recorded it myself.
I'm sorry, but you mean to tell me that you can do your own voiceover on a book that you write?
And I actually
I'm being
did
sarcastic here.
And I did hire a company so that, because, I probably could have gotten through the recording part, but working with a director who helped me through it was huge. And then I don't have to worry about the editing out all of the random, noises or whatever. Yeah.
But if you would have hired somebody to do the voiceover part, it would have cost an arm and a leg.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I know there are publishers out there that will tell authors, well, no, you need to hire somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a novel, that's one thing because you have to portray different characters. But if it's something like this, even a memoir, use your own voice.
And I think that having my voice as the person who wrote the words helps people understand the context, helps people understand. Yeah.
It's just like your business. With your business, you're putting your face out there because you are your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same with your book and even a podcast. Your voice is your brand. Put it out there.
Right.
It makes sense. And you have a voice that people can listen to.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. And I've had many people tell me things like that. So,
well, it's peaceful. It's relaxing, which is something that you want. You don't want somebody coming in there and try. No, you don't want that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
So anyway, but yeah,
I'm glad of that though. I'm glad it's going to be an Audible as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 7 elements of wellness, we talk about, four that are like the core of who we are. It's our physical self, spiritual, mental, and emotional. Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. That's how we define those four parts of ourselves. And then we have three areas that, as Michael was doing this study, he was understanding there's ways that we relate to the world in our relationships, our vocation, and through our finances. And so these are all things that are like, we call them the connecting three. It's how we as, as humans interact with God and with the world around us and with our society, our culture.
Okay. So you have the core four, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physical,
right.
spiritual, was it mental?
Mental and emotional.
And emotional wellness. Okay. So how could someone actually develop a sustainable wellness routine that integrates all four of those elements without feeling overwhelmed, especially because of mental health?
Right. And I would say, so one of the elements, I didn't even talk much about the grace cycle, but it's a formula for transformation. And one of the steps of that is to just work on one thing at a time. I call it one simple change. But for example, say I'm aware that my mental health is the area that is really needing the most work.
Right.
So instead of worrying about everything all at once, I'm going to step into what's one thing I can do to help improve my mental health. And it's different for everybody. We're all unique. So again, we all have to use our own curiosity. But maybe it looks like I'm going to make a point of starting my day with gratitude. Or maybe it looks like I'm going to, Paul wrote about taking every thought captive. Maybe there is a specific thought pattern that I need to begin to become aware of. And every time I notice it, I need to say, that is not true. And what is the truth about me or about the world that I need to replace that with? And being very intentional just about one simple thing at a time.
Right.
And then, of course, as we improve our mental health, then emotions are going to improve. It's all, we separate these four core parts of ourselves, but we're also very aware they overlap and they interact and they influence each other. Maybe my mental health is a struggle, but I'm aware that if I just get out and exercise my body for 30 minutes every day, it's going to make a big difference, right?
And it will.
Yeah.
It definitely will.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned the grace cycle, okay? And a lot of people struggle to extend grace to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to someone who battles with self-criticism or even perfectionism?
I battle those things myself. So I can understand that. Yes. So the one thing I would say to begin with, I've actually moved away from this phrase, give grace to myself or give grace to others, because I have become aware that grace is too big for me to give. I have to receive it. I can't give it. Grace can only come from God, real grace. I can give myself and others understanding, compassion, things like that.
Right.
So, and it's just mostly a semantic thing, but still. So for somebody who is battling self-criticism and like, why don't I get this right yet? Why am I still stuck? I would just encourage you to come to a place of acceptance for yourself. And that's, again, one of the steps of the grace cycle. Usually when we're like, okay, something in my life needs to change, we're like, okay, I'm going to go into battle mode. I'm going to fight it off. It's all wrong. It's all bad. But there's always a story under it. If I need to change something, there's a story under it. And I need to make peace with the past so that I can make a new choice for the future. So if I am criticizing myself, maybe it's helpful to step back and say, was there a voice I heard from outside when I was a young child that spoke so much criticism that I internalized it as I got older? And how can I make peace with that? Because I can't change the past. I need to accept this and then move into what does the future look differently? And then start taking that thought captive when I start hearing that, why didn't you get it right this time? I'm growing. I'm learning. I'm changing. God loves me. Does that help?
Yeah. And I'm sitting there thinking, because I love self-help books, and technically this sounds a lot like a self-help book as well. Are there, and if you tell me you're already doing this, I'm just going to be blown away, any plans on doing classes or whatever or even webinars that go along with the book? I know you have the companion, which I want to talk about that too.
Yeah. We have done a few. And that's, like this challenge about heart care, thriving on the hamster wheel that I have coming up in February. This is taking the grace cycle and applying it to how do we engage in self-care in our lives. So it is such a huge, broad topic. I'm very aware of that for me. So I love to do, like I did last October, I did a webinar about, and I think I've even got a teaching I did on my website, but I did something about unanswered prayers. So like when you're stuck because you're praying and praying and praying and nothing is happening and you feel like it's just bouncing off the ceiling, where's God in that? And how do you find God? And how does the grace cycle change your perspective for these unanswered prayers?
Oh, I have a thought about that.
Okay.
Because we've talked about doing a podcast about this. Do you with unanswered prayers, do you think those prayers are unanswered because people don't know how to pray? How to talk to God?
Do I think those prayers are unanswered? I don't know. I think that sometimes God, so there is, and I'm kind of all over the place. That's a really deep, good question. And I think
it's a deep question. That's why it's an episode I want to talk about.
Yeah. So I think that one of the things is we do need to seek what is God's will as opposed to what do I want. Like when my daughter was out of my house and I didn't know where she was and I didn't know what was going on. And I was constantly praying, God, bring her home, God, bring her home, God, bring her home, and asking everybody else, please pray that she'll come home. I wasn't asking God what he wanted me to pray. I was just praying for what I wanted. And so those prayers, in a sense, weren't being answered. And then, of course, there was God, when I was aware, God help her become sober. And then it was, she needed to walk through her own timing and process until she was ready to find sobriety. So I think part of it is, needing to kind of pause and ask God, what do you want me to pray in this? And part of it is timing.
Yeah.
And part of it is, there's one of the things that I know I used to do that I think it's really easy to do. I call strategic praying, where the idea is if I get enough people on my side, or if I pray in just the right way, then I put, it's the chessboard and I put God in check and he has no choice. He has to answer my prayer the way I want it. So I was trying to get as many people as I could on my side to pray for my daughter the way I wanted things to work out. And God said, you need to learn to trust me and surrender. And so there were other things God was doing in me as I was praying for her. So I think there's a lot, there's again this kind of pat answer that sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no, sometimes the answer is wait. But I think that when we stop looking at our circumstances and looking at what's going on, and we can just pause and we can look at God and say, what are you actually doing here? That helps us to rest and wait. And just like, it's like he was calling me all along.
Yeah.
I know, I do love your daughter and I'm going to do something, but I want you to find me and I want you to let me love you instead of being distracted by what's going on with other people. I want you and I want your heart is what he was saying to me.
Yeah. I think a lot of people give up too easily too. I'm thinking of like social media and text messaging today.
Yeah.
You send a text to somebody, you expect to get an answer back right away. And unfortunately, I believe a lot of people think that way with God. When they pray to God, well, a couple things. First of all, when they pray to God, asking him for something, I think they're expecting something, him to answer right away.
Mm-hmm.
My other belief is I believe too many people always pray and asking something from God instead of thanking him for everything he's done.
Yes.
That's something you should be doing that every day, without a doubt. All right. So explain the companion guide.
Yeah. So as we were going through this, Michael did all of this background Bible study, that went into the book. And, so as we were writing the book, we thought, well, let's have something that we can have like a little giveaway where people can kind of dig a little bit more into what the scriptures really are teaching. Cause they can read my words. They can read what we wrote. And there's scripture references throughout the book, of course.
Right.
But then if they can like dig in and go, oh, okay, so this is what it really says, and they can understand the context and they can understand. So Michael started working on what we thought was going to be like this short little, giveaway. And it turned into, I think it might even be longer than the book. It's this extensive 10-week Bible study where each week you've got 5 days of studying and understanding and what is God speaking to me about this and what can I do with what this chapter is teaching. And then a small group discussion is part of it. So I took that and, made it even way, just took little tiny pieces out of it and turned it into a reflection journal that you can download if you buy the book. There's a little QR code in the book that you can download the reflection journal.
Okay.
But so it's this really extensive study that's designed for ideally to do with at least one other person because we believe in community and support and connection with others, right? But
I love it though.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you were right. It is longer. I'm looking because I'm looking the book itself, Thriving in Grace, is 183 pages.
Mm-hmm.
The study companion is 228 pages.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit, but I haven't looked at it, but I'm sure there's like space for you to take notes and everything too.
Yeah.
Which is why
there's lots of
more
space
pages.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But the good thing is with, especially now that you got the Audible version of the book, people can buy the study guide and as they're listening to the book, go right along with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Man, I love this. And I think you already if you haven't started working on it yet, I think you already have another book in the works about unanswered prayers, maybe.
I might. I have got some thoughts about, because like I said, the grace cycle is such a big thing and thriving in grace is like, it's huge. So
yeah,
I've got, ideas for, a book, there could be a book about unanswered prayer. There can be a book about, grace in your unanswered prayers. There can be a book about grace for parenting, grace for grief, grace for overcoming addiction, grace for, so many areas of our lives where God's grace is there. So so there's like later on this year, once I get that podcast done, once I get that podcast underway, then I'll make some space and start writing some more books that are just going to help, bring it down to some very specific areas of our lives.
I love that, though. So
Thanks.
Those of you listening, again, make sure you purchase both of the books, not just the one. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Take that back. All 3 of the books, because you don't want to forget the first one, as she wrote, The Fruit of Gratitude, Cultivate a Thankful Heart Through Awareness of God's Goodness. There is no study companion with that one. And then, of course, Thriving in Grace, Unleashing Wellness from a Biblical Perspective, which is when's it going to be available on Audible? Do you know?
I don't know. It should be sometime this spring. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, that's all right. Go ahead and buy the book anyways, in either hardcover or paperback. Yeah. And of course, make sure you get the Bringing Grace Home, a Bible study companion to Thriving in Grace. And after you do it all, a couple things. You all know where I'm going with this. Leave a full review, whether it be on Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, wherever you can buy books. And then don't pass it on because it's a guidebook. It's something that you're going to want to keep by your side all the time, all of them. Purchase it for somebody else. And something that I've said before too, purchase, because this is something I believe could be used even, we mentioned recovery, even in the recovery homes. So those of you that own a business, purchase several copies, donate them to some places as well. Because you're helping people and you're spreading God's word. And that's very important. Karen, is there anything you would like to add before I get to my last question?
I am just so grateful, Rich, for, for diving in and having this opportunity and for your encouraging other people. I really believe that this is something that it's a different way to approach our lives and our relationship with God. And so thank you for encouraging other people, not just to buy it to support me, but to buy it because it's going to change their lives.
Oh yeah. It's very important. And I want to thank you because you're helping people. And actually, one of the things I never asked you though, this ain't my last question, but what is your business? You're not just an author, right?
Right. I have a business called One Fit Wellness. And when I started it, the idea is to encourage people to pursue wellness in all areas of their lives, not just physical fitness. So through, I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching. I am putting out, these different things like the challenge and the Lent devotional content and things like that. So, yeah.
So that's on the same website, KarenA.Dittman.com, right?
Yes.
I remember DA this time. Okay. So if you could go back and give advice to yourself at the beginning of your wellness journey, what would you say?
I would say to myself something that I say often to my kids, to other people. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. And it's every time I now like I'm in that survival mode, like I just got to keep going. I just got to push through. I stop myself and say, Karen, you don't have to just be in survival mode. You can meet God right here in this hard moment. He is with me. And so just to say to myself, look for God. He is right here. Let him walk you through this. Let him speak to you.
Karen, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing. God bless you. And even though I never met Michael, tell him I said hi. And God, your story is just amazing. 45. 45 when you found out you were pregnant.
Yeah.
That was your first and only pregnancy too, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And those of you listening, yeah, she did blow me away because when she came on, I thought she was like, what did I say, late 30s, early 40s?
I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah. No, she's not. She's still younger than me, though. But yeah, she's not. So, Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rich. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going.